Well, funny. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well, hang on. Where am I? Okay, I'm gonna share screen. We have, we're starting a new book today, Amos. Has anyone ever studied Amos before? Just out of curiosity?
Mhm. No,
No, yeah, okay.
yeah, I have.
You have, okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering. All right, I'm just rearranging my screen so I can see everything. Come on. All right, whatever. Um, Great. Okay, so Amos, let me take a step backwards. I was researching the book. There's a lot, with Yoel, the background to Yoel is no one knows when Yoel happened, and so this is a cool opportunity to study something, in isolation. The introduction to Amos is here's a ton of history and possibilities and context. So a lot of a lot of what I was doing to prepare for today was just the background. And there's also the text. So Amos, let's do it in conjunction with the first pasuk. So the book opens with Divrei Amos asher haya banokdim mitekoa asher chaza al Yisrael bimei Uzziah melech Yehuda uvimei Yeravam ben Yoash melech Yisrael shnatayim lifnei haraash. All right. So the words of Amos Asher Haya Nokdim. People don't really know what that means, Nokdim. It is used elsewhere in Tanakh and seems to imply a sheep herder. And so that's why here it's translated as sheep breeder. But that's not really definitive. And he's from Tekoa, which is in Yehuda, by the way, not in Israel, who prophesies concerning Israel in the reigns of King Uzziah of Judah and Yeravam, son of Joash of Israel, 2 years before the Ra'ash. Okay. So first of all, King Uzziah of Yehuda and Yeravam, they name both the Judah king and the Israel king, perhaps to show, the relevance, the connection, what have you. Now, what is this? I love the Hebrew Ra'ash, right? Ra'ash means noise. And here it's translated as earthquake, which it's understood to be an earthquake. Now, what's really helpful for with today with the JPS, I know usually I like to kind of, hate on them a little bit, but what's really great is that they link, there's lots of textual like references in this chapter and they link to all of them, which is really nice. So the Ra'ash is referenced one other place in Tanakh, that's in Zechariah. Um, and the valley and the hill shall be stopped up, for the valley of the hill shall reach only to Azal. It shall be stopped up as it was stopped up as a result of the earthquake in the days of King Uzziah of Judah. Now, that's also Ra'ash, but so we have well, let me say a few things. We have two references now to some kind of Ra'ash that was happening, both during King Uzziah. And there is also archaeological evidence of earthquakes in that time. Some of the buildings they found have walls leaning in, or just, some things are broken in certain ways. Yeah, I don't know how they figured that out, but there is definitely also archaeological evidence of some kind of an earthquake back then. Um, Dating to like 760, 750 something BCE. So now this is 2 years before then. From what I saw, almost is, let's say roughly 750 BCE is when he starts, roughly speaking. And please, if any of you have any intro footnotes or anything like that, please share. I'm just, kind of combining what I saw in a few different places, but I'm sure you all have your own material as well, and I'd love to add that to the conversation. So Amos, that's who he is. He's going to be prophesizing doom in the northern kingdom. As we'll see, he begins with prophesizing doom about the other nations, but then we'll of course turn to Israel. Um, yes. So I just want to give a moment for folks to look at their own notes or in your books if you have it with you and see if there's anything that you want to add. Excuse me. Okay. All right. Oh, and by the way, also it opens with Divrei Amos, and as some of the few scholars point out. Divrei is actually not such a common opener and tends to be associated with like negative things. So, we know already it's not going to be good, but it's prophecy. Prophecy usually doesn't start off very good. So, what you gonna do? All right. Vayomar Hashem mitzion yish'ag u'miyushalayim yiten kolo ve'avlu ne'ot haroim vayavesh rosh hakarmel. He proclaimed, God roars from Zion, shouts aloud from Jerusalem, and the pastures of the shepherds shall languish, and the summit of Carmel shall wither. Yeah. All right. So I mean, this is a type of doom-like introduction for sure. That's, now what we're going to see is that he's going to prophesize against 7 nations before he gets to Israel. Each of them follows a similar structure, but references different actions. Lots of historical material on what exactly was going on here, some doubts, and so we'll try to look at them and in so doing, look at differences and similarities. So, Ko Amar Hashem al shlosha pish'ei dameshek ve'al arba'a lo ashivenu al dusham bacharutzot habarzel et hagilad. So, thus said God, excuse me, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, for 4 I will not revoke the decree. So what's going on here? This is the intro that we'll see for each one. It's hard to, I mean, it's a bit of an odd formula, which scholars have pointed out. Al shlosha pish'ei dameshek, right? For about the 3 sins of Dameshek, but then there's nothing more about that, right? There's no reference to it. It's just like saying there were 3, but then the al arba'a lo ashivenu, right? But if there's a 4th, lo ashivenu, I will not. Well, actually, for those of you who have translations in front of you, how do you have lo ashivenu translated?
So mine says that for 3 transgressions I have looked away, but for 4 I will not pardon them.
Okay, great. Yes, I think, okay, beautiful. That's interesting that they add in look away. Okay.
Actually, that's in brackets, but yeah.
Right. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, because it's right. It's trying to explain like what's going on. One thing I read was debating whether is it that the 4th has to be worse than the first 3 in order to make this decree of destruction, uncancelable, or is it just that, 4th you're out? I don't know how much that matters ultimately.
I said I will not acquit them.
Acquit. Good. Okay, great. Like that. All right. Yeah, meaning of Hebrew uncertain. Okay, so what is the sin here? They threshed Gilad with threshing boards of iron. So right off the bat, not like what does that mean, right? And what makes that so egregious that this is the sin that is cited? Does anyone have any comments on that one? Okay. Well, so the way that like my guy understands it is, by the way, Dameshek is like the city of Aram, right? So there's this nation of Aram living north of the northern kingdom, right? Of course, like in Syria, this would be that territory. And what this is alleging is that they conquered Gilad, which was part in the north, and then killed the inhabitants of it in a very cruel, like evil way. And that's what this is referencing, that like threshing Gilad with the iron boards. Okay. So I know some of our regulars who have their books with them aren't here, so I will wait
I
for.
just realized something.
Yeah, please.
Um, we asked last week about the time of Yoel,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that by the fact that we know that Hazael was the king of Aram, it has to be after Elisha and anointed him, or was it Elijah that anointed him?
Mm-hmm.
Saying that the timing would be right after Ahab. Um,
The timing
sorry,
for.
that's the next verse. Verse 4 is
Ah.
Beit Hazael, but
Okay, got it. Okay, great. So let's look at that. So
Ruth,
essentially, the point of 3 is that we have this kind of it's not totally clear what this is referencing, and it's
I
a.
have a different interpretation.
Oh,
It says
yeah.
the 3 transgressions are the 3 times the Jewish nation was oppressed by Damascus in the time of Baasha, during the reign of King Ahab, and in the days of Jehoahaz, son of Jehu. With the advent of the 4th persecution in the time of Ahaz, Syria was punished for all of these and was conquered by Assyria. And that's from Radak.
Okay, great. Right, and then probably referencing that fact that in 4, the destruction is referencing those things, right? So the 4 is V'shilachti ish beveit Chazael ve'achla armanot ben Hadad. So I'll send down fire upon the palace of Chazael, and it shall devour the fortresses of Ben Hadad. So we can look at the references here. I will send down fire, Lamentations 113. Yeah, of sending down fire. This is, of course, different. This referencing the destruction of the first temple. Yeah, okay. Actually, I don't know totally why they link that there. Oops, did I lose my oh. Okay, here we are. And then fortresses of Ben.
Excuse me. I'm
Yeah.
understand what we just read. What Amos is saying is that God will tolerate a foreign nation here, Damascus, killing Israelites in a terrible way 3 times.
Yeah.
The 4th time they killed those Israelites, come on now, 4 strikes and you're out. But 3 killings of Israelites is okay.
Yeah. It's a great question. The only thing I would say is that this is all really a build up to the intro to the rebuke of Israel. So maybe it's saying because if Israel sinned 3 times, I'm going to let the other nations sin 3 times. But yeah, it definitely I identify with it as a parent, right? Where you're just like you don't actually want to mete out the punishment or something. You're like, this is your 4th chance, Yes, I don't know.
So who is Amos's audience here? I mean, he is prophesying to Israelites saying that God will rescue the 4th time he does it, or is he prophesying to Damascus and foreigners, don't try it a 4th time? Who is his audience that he's prophesying to?
Yes. Okay. So they're definitely, I believe the understanding based on what I read is that it was not really intended for Aram, for this nation in Damascus. It's the audience is the Israelites, the northern kingdom.
So he's saying that you have to suffer 3 times, and the 4th time I'll rescue you.
Yeah, and the 4th time I'll destroy your enemy. Yeah.
Not a good message. Okay.
Yeah, it's not great. I agree. Not great. Yeah. Mhm. All right, so that's and then 5 V'shavarti beriach Dameshek v'hichrati Yoshev mibikat Aven v'tomech shevet mibeit Eden v'galu am Aram kira amar Hashem. I will excuse me. I will break the gate bars of Damascus and wipe out the inhabitants from the vale of Aven, Bikat Aven, and the sceptered ruler of Beit Eden. And the people of Aram shall be exiled to Kir, said God. And we'll see that this pattern repeats. Anyone have a good, concise footnote explaining what's going on here? By the way, breaking the gate bars means you're, opening up the city to attack. like you're breaking in.
All I have is it says see 2 Kings 16:9.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what it's here. Is Second Kings. What was the ref for Second Kings? What?
It says 16
Oh,
colon
69. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is matching up with historical events for sure. Okay, so let's move. So we had those, by the way, those were three verses, right? Starting with Koamar, and then different ways that where God's going to destroy them. Now we move to Aza. Koamar Hashem al shosha pish'ei Aza ve'al arba'a lo ashivenu al haglotam galut shlema lehaskir le'edom. So thus said God, for three transgressions of Gaza. I like that I will look the other way in brackets. For four, I will not revoke the decree because they exiled Haglotam Galut Shlema, because they exiled, let me cover up this footnote for a second. For an entire population, which they delivered to Edom, right? So now, yes, the question, what is going on here? And if you hit the footnote, it's cooperated with the annexation of Israelite territory. What was in 1319? Arei HaNegev Sigru ve'ein poteach haglat Yehuda kula haglat Shlomim. All right, so I see like kind of a cross reference there. And when they delivered to Edom, yeah, some of them it says, oh, emendation yields Aram, right? Edom and Aram are pretty similar when they're written out in the Hebrew, which, might help make more sense than that. But I didn't see that as like being definitive. Yeah, okay. Or he says it's Adon, which could be a different place that would be in the north, which would make more sense. No, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, right, exactly. That's not the Edom to the south because that wouldn't make sense. Sorry. By the way, Aza is one of the 5 Assyrian, no, gosh, what's with me today? Philistine towns. Anyone have a footnote or anything interesting here? Okay, so they were not single-handedly responsible for anything, right? It's that they cooperated in it. So what is going to happen? V'shilachti eish b'chomat Aza ve'achla armonoteha. I will send down fire upon the wall of Aza. So once again, we have just like up here, v'shilachti eish. Now we have again, v'shilachti eish. Upon the wall of Aza, ve'achla armonoteha, and it shall devour its fortresses. So these are, basically the same, more or less. Sorry. That's weird. All right. V'hichrati yoshev me'ashdod v'tomech shevet me'ashkelon v'hashivoti yadi al Ekron ve'avdu she'erit plishtim amar Adonai Elohim. All right, so, and I will wipe out the inhabitants of Ashdod and the sceptered ruler of Ashkelon, and I will turn my hand against Ekron, and the Philistines shall perish with no remnant, said the sovereign king. So once again, those are different cities within the Philistines. They will be totally destroyed. Any footnotes, comments here? All right. Okay, now we go to the next one. Ko amar Hashem al shlosha pish'ei tzor ve'al arba'a lo ashivenu al haskiram galut shlema le'edom ve'lo zachru brit achim. So thus said God, for 3 transgressions of Tyre, of Tzor, I will look away, but for 4, I will not revoke the decree, because they handed over an entire population to Edom, ignoring the covenant of brotherhood. So, all right, what do we have going on here? Edom. And so Edom, of course, is the nation that descends from Esav and is in the south of Israel at this time. And so here it's that they handed the nation over to Edom and velo zachru brit achim, right? They didn't remember the covenant of brotherhood. Now, let's see what was in here of the covenant of brotherhood. Yes, right. So, Vayhi Shalom ben Hiramu ben Shlomo v'yichartu brit shnehem. Right. So we see here that Shlomo makes a covenant with Hiram, who's the king, that so they make this brit together, and so that is what this is referencing. That Tzor ignored this brit and handed them over. But of course, because we're talking about Edom, we have to acknowledge that it's a brit achim, right? And that it's a covenant of brothers, a brit of brothers, and that Edom is descended from Esav, who is, of course, Yaakov's brother, right? And so it's hearkening back also to the biblical relationship as well. Anything? No? Okay. So what's God gonna do? V'shilachti eish bechomat Tzor v'achla armanoteha. I will send down fire upon the wall of Tzor, and it shall devour its fortresses. All right, same thing that we've seen so far. And then we don't have another and, right? The other two had an and after the fire. Sorry, I know I'm scrolling down. That might make someone a little bit dizzy. This one does not have an and. Wait a second. Oh, sorry, yeah, I missed it. Okay. So we move right to Edom now. Kumar Hashem al shosha pishei Edom al arba'a lo ashivenu al rodfo b'cherev achiv v'shichet rachamav v'yitrof le'ad apo v'evrato shmara netzach. Thus said God, for 3 transgressions of Edom. Oh, sorry, I messed up. The Tzor wasn't the brother. I got confused. The covenant of brotherhood, of course, was what Shlomo made with Tzor. This is the brotherhood. So for 3 transgressions of Edom, for 4, I will not revoke the decree because he pursued his brother with the sword. Click these out. And repressed all pity, because his anger raged unceasing and his fury stormed unchecked. So this really, this is interesting because it's less of a commentary in some ways on the historical facts and more on the way that he did it, or the betrayal of the relationship, right? That he chased his brother with a sword. But I love this shichet rachamav. How do you have shichet rachamav translated? What do you do with this pity?
It says, and suppressing his mercy.
Okay. Great. All right.
Excuse me. In all of these repetitive destructions of the enemies that surround Israel, Amos is prophesying that God will destroy them. But if we're hearkening back to the original conquest of the land, Israelites are told to kill the 7 nations and take their land. Here, there's no indication that once Tyre or Edom or Damascus are destroyed, that the Israelites will take it. So it's not clear, do new enemies move in? It's not clear what happens, because it's very unlike the conquest of the land. And I'm not certain if there's some implication here that Israelites are victorious over these people and take something, or whether destruction happens and the Israelites just stay where they are, hopefully more secure in their ghetto. And I don't understand.
I don't think there's a sense of and you'll take their land. It's more about like retribution, I think. If anyone disagrees or feels, please chime in.
So the Israelites gain safety, but other foreign nations will simply replace these and take their spots.
That is true.
That doesn't seem like much safety.
No, and also it's interesting. So I had brought a couple of visuals. Although admittedly this is very hard to see, unfortunately. Rabbi Yitzchak Echelon on the Gush website has lots of shiurim on this. And what he points out that is if you follow the names, you realize that what we're really doing is going down the list of the nations that surround the land of Israel. And so, he imagines if you're Israel and you hear Aram is first, right? Damascus. And you're like, ooh, God's gonna crush those people, who above us, who live above us and are not our source of, fear and fighting for us. And then you get excited. But then as you go down the list, you're like, wait a minute, this is all the nations that surround us, right? And it starts to actually bring up a feeling of fear rather than confidence or content.
So
So
parallels today. I mean, all the
yeah.
nations around Israel, the enemies, if God were to seek his retribution against them, but the Israelites still stayed in the small land, there's no long-term security.
Yeah. Yep. That's a great question. I feel like it seems so obvious, and yet I don't really remember ever having focused on it. So, I don't
All
know.
right.
It's a great question. Okay, so that's our little map. Um, but for 11, tell me if anyone has a different translation. But yes, it seems like there is, this element of betrayal and the repression of mercy, because without that, of course, your inclination would be to have mercy for your brother. Even though, of course, like the relationship between Edom and Israel, Judah is, like Yaakov and Esav, the relationship is dicey. To say, oh, it's a brotherly relationship, that's the ultimate betrayal, is like, to me, kind of a little opportunistic. Like, it's been a rough relationship since the two individuals existed. So, yeah. All right. Now, once again, V'shilachti eish b'Teman ve'achla armenot Batzra, excuse me. I will send down fire upon Teman, and it shall devour the fortresses of Botzra. This is how God's going to destroy them. Now we get to Ammon, Ko'amar Hashem al shosha pishei b'nei Ammon ve'al arba'a lo ashivenu al bik'am harot ha'gil'ad lema'an harchiv et gvulam. So thus said God, for 3 transgressions of the Ammonites, I will look away. For 4, I will not revoke the decree. Oy, this is terrible. Because they ripped open the pregnant women of Gil'ad in order to enlarge their own territory. What this seems to mean is, they were fighting and engaged in really horrific actions to, the people when they conquered them. And yeah, let me just
That's what Hamas did on October 7th.
ripped open. They did that?
Yeah,
Really?
just
Yeah. It's really, really, really sick.
Things don't change.
Yeah, just the emphasis here is like just the cruelty. Right? It's less the actions and the fact that they did it cruelly. All right, so now it's a little bit different. V'hitzati eish bechomat rabba ve'achla armenoteha bitru'a b'yom milchama b'sa'ar b'yom sufa. I will set fire to the wall of Rabbah. It shall devour its fortresses amid shouting on a day of battle, on a day of violent tempest. Right. So that part is new, is this addition here. Yeah. Anyone have any good footnotes on this explaining what's going on? Why it's longer here? Right. So this is the last pasuk, but it doesn't really necessarily mean anything. But halach malkam begolav hu b'sarav yachtav amar Hashem. Their king and officers shall go into exile together. All right. So that's the end of chapter 1. However, we really the 4th pasuk in the next chapter starts the oracle against Israel, the people, and especially in honor of Shavuot this weekend and Moab, I figured we should just do the first 3 verses of chapter 2. So, Komar Hashem al Shosha Pish'ei Moab ve'al arba'a lo ashivenu al sarfo atzmot melech Edom lasid. So thus said God, for 3 transgressions of Moab I will look away, for 4 I will not revoke the decree, because he burned the bones of the king of Edom to lime. Excuse me. V'shilachti eish b'Moav ve'achla armenot hakiryot kriyot v'meit b'shaon Moav b'turah b'kol shofar. I will send down fire upon Moab, and it shall devour the fortresses of Kiryot, and Moab shall die in tumult amid shouting and the blare of horns. V'chichrati shofet mikirba ve'kol sareha eharog imo amar Hashem. I will wipe out the ruler from within her and slay all her officials along with her. Anyone have some good footnotes, comments for us? My guy basically comments for this bones of Edom, just like not clear what this is referring to or when.
Well, here, rather than saying I will wipe out its ruler, I will eliminate any judge. So is the judge the ruler?
Shofet. Okay, good. Yeah, well, I think the question is like, what are these different, what is this referring to, right? As Shofet and Sarim. My guy says, Yeshomrim Shehu Toar Lamelech Moab, right? That this is a description for the king. And the Sarim are like the advisors, but others disagree and say, no, it actually is a Dayan. So yeah, I think it sounds like there's just disagreement.
Okay.
That would be why. Yeah, that's why it's where those words come from.
The phrase "the blare of horns" intrigues me, because customarily in these situations they would be blowing the shofar to summon troops. Yet this is a retribution from God. You don't summon troops to fight God. So is this saying that God is using a foreign nation, a foreign agent to do this retribution, and that's why they're summoning their troops and just going to lose? Because you wouldn't blow the shofar against God.
So actually just sorry, so you're saying who's blowing the shofar?
No, I'm saying it sounds like the Israelites are blowing the shofar as a call to battle, is what it sounded like, the way they
right.
And yet they wouldn't blow the shofar to summon troops to call the battle against God. So God must be using a foreign agent to do this retribution. He's not doing it himself. Otherwise, you wouldn't sound the shofar.
I see. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a strong concept that the other nations don't either destroy Israel or destroy each other. That they are, sorry, let me say it differently, that they are indeed acting as agents of God when they do that, right? That God ordains that, the Babylonians will come and wipe out the Assyrians and all of that stuff. Right, which is interesting also because it makes the takedowns are much more realistic rather than saying, I'm going to send, fire and brimstone and all these things. It's like, no, I'm just going to send the Babylonians after you. Which, I mean, we could argue, of course, is that actually predictive? Is it merely a way of saying it afterwards? We don't know. Lots of different options. But it is grounded as, fantastical as some of these ideas are. They are fairly grounded in reality, ultimately. Any other comments on Moab? Okay, one last thing I just wanted to show is that, so this rabbi who I mentioned, I'm just moving this over here so I can see it better. Here's what he does. He has this chart. We're not going to go through all of it now, for sure. Do not worry. But I just thought it was cool that what he did was, makes the chart of the 7 different nations. Well, we did the 6. We didn't do Yehuda. What is either the 4th sin or one of their sins, not clear. And then the punishment result. And yeah. So Aram was war crimes or excessive destruction. Simple form, fire, the punishment is fire against the palaces and the shattering of the city defenses. Result, exile back to Kir, right? And signed at the end with like God's name. Philistia, handing over refugees to Edom. The punishment is fire against the palaces, destruction of leadership. The result is the decimation of the tribe. Phoenicia, handing refugees over to Edom, also formed by colon, punishment, fire against palaces, right? So now we are leaving out destruction and leadership and all those things. 4 is Edom, ruthless killing of brother, right? Is that war crimes or something else? And then the fire against the palaces is the punishment. Ammon, war crimes. A lot of these you can see here are war crimes. Fire against the palaces, not anything else. And then they will go to war and the king sent into exile. And same for Moab, right? Ammon and Moab are grouped together often, so that isn't too surprising. And yeah, then next week we'll see Yehuda, right? So it is very interesting that it seems, 4 of the 6 are arguably war crimes. They did something. It's not that they did it, like I said, but they did in this cruel, terrible way. And 2 of it is handing the refugees over to Edom, which is referenced many times throughout Tanakh and really seen as a very offensive act.
The other thing that intrigues me here is that although my knowledge of the late First Temple period is limited, this touches upon all of the nations that border on Israel, with the exception of one. Egypt, which is our southern border at that point, is not mentioned here.
Yes, and neither is Assyria. Yes, the two biggest threats are ignored, right? And perhaps it's because they're referenced elsewhere, or meaning, there's those are separate prophecies. But yes, the 2 ones that the people of Israel would have been most thinking about as our enemy is, like you said, Egypt in the south and Assyria in the north. And yet it's all the secondary ones surrounding them that are the ones referenced here.
And what happens is Assyria actually swallows up a number of these nations before it is swallowed up by Babylonia. Egypt sort of just remains static during this period.
I thought Assyria ends up destroying them, no? I don't remember what happens.
Assyria swallows up most of these smaller nations around them and the 10 tribes before Babylonia comes in, destroys Assyria. It makes me think that there's some time travel here. This might have been written later when that knowledge was already known.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also that question. There's a couple of things referenced that seem to be very accurate. And here it's claimed to have not happened yet. So,
So it's written later and timed back, which
right. And it's also a way of not, if you want to not just let those nations go forgotten to have been absorbed or swallowed by Assyria, you want to say, actually, no, this was very intentional, then this is a great way to do it. Yeah.
So there is scholarship showing this was written later then.
Yeah, I believe what I read is that as of recently, the dating of Amos has kind of come into question. But I don't remember definitively.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look more into it. All right. Well, wonderful, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm excited to continue this book for sure. Next week, of course, we won't meet because of Shavuot, but I'm good to meet the week after that.
I just wanted to add, again, you were talking about dating. It's obvious that Hashem's retribution for these nations, and he's very, very patient, because most of the nations that we talked about today were already mentioned in the book of Judges, and maybe even tied to Shavuot because we're reading the book of Ruth. So like Yiftach sent letters to the king of Ammon because he was oppressing the people in Gilad. So I'm just saying that from the verses or prophecies, we can't know for sure when it was. I'm just saying that Hashem is very, very patient when it comes to retribution of these evil nations. So
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. All right.
Ruth, I won't be here the following week. I will be in Washington, but I'll be looking after my granddaughter who's 20 months while her parents are away.
Very nice. Beautiful.
wow.
Enjoy that.
Yeah, so
Amazing. All right. Well, we will miss you. And have a wonderful Shavuot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.